I am standing in front of our bathroom mirror, wearing my wife's cashmere robe and her favorite red lipstick, and I have never felt more like myself in my entire life, and that sentence is the reason I am telling you this story right now, because 11 months ago, I would have told you that sentence made me sick to my stomach, and today I am going to walk you through every single doorway I walked through to get here, not because I want you to feel sorry for me, and not because I want you to applaud me, but because almost every single crossdresser I have ever spoken to is hiding behind the same closed door I was hiding behind, and the second I opened it, the second I let the air in, everything about my life got quieter and softer and braver all at once. And if you're sitting somewhere tonight with your hand hovering over a drawer that you think belongs to someone else, then this story is for you, and I need you to know right at the top that I am not a writer, and I am not a guru, and I am just a husband who wore his wife's secret and lived to tell about it, and what happened next surprised both of us and changed the entire geometry of our marriage in ways neither of us saw coming, and I am going to walk you through it slowly because the average video on this channel runs 13 minutes, and you clicked on this one despite 1,000 other thumbnails, and that means something, and the something is that a part of you is curious, and the curious part is the part that has been whispering to you for years, and the whisper is what brought you here tonight. And I respect that whisper, and I want to reward it by giving you every single turning point that mattered, and every single mistake that almost cost me everything. And every single lesson I learned that I wish someone had taught me before I started, because nobody taught me, and that is why I am here, and that is why I am talking, and that is why I am asking you to stay with me until the very last sentence, because the last sentence is the one that freed me, and I think it might be the one that frees you too. So let us begin with the morning everything changed, and I did not even know it had changed yet, and I was still pretending to be the man I had always been. Which is a strange thing to say out loud, because I had been that man for 38 years and I thought he was the real one, and I was wrong, and the real one was standing in our hallway that morning holding a pair of stockings I had found in a shoebox at the back of her closet, and I had absolutely no idea what to do next. So I set them back down and I closed the closet door, and I went to work, and I did not mention it for 6 more weeks, and that silence is where this story actually begins. Because silence is the room most crossdressers live in, and I lived in it for almost 4 decades before I even realized it was a room, and it had no windows and no lights and no furniture, and I do not want you to live in there the way I did. And so, I am going to keep talking until the door is at least cracked open for you, and then we will see how far you want to walk through it, because the door leads somewhere, I promise you it does, and the somewhere is not what you think it is, and it is not what I thought it was either. And that is why I am going to keep my promise from the very first sentence, which was that hook you just heard. And let us go now to the first turning point, which is the discovery, which sounds small and clinical, but it is not small at all, because the discovery is not the stockings. The discovery is the moment that you realize that you have been looking for those stockings your entire life. And that is a much stranger sentence than I want it to be, and I need you to sit with the strangeness of it, because that is where the truth lives, and the truth is that I had been carrying around a private inventory of women's clothing in my head since I was 11 years old, and I had never once gone into a store and bought anything, and I had never once opened a browser and ordered anything, and yet every single Saturday morning when my wife left for her yoga class, I would find myself standing in front of her dresser, just breathing in the smell of her perfume, and just running my thumb along the edge of a slip and just holding a silk camisole up to the light and then folding it carefully and putting it back exactly the way I had found it, because I thought I was protecting her. And the truth is I was protecting me, because if I ever put one of those things on my body, the whole story would change. And I was not ready for the whole story to change. And so I kept folding and kept putting back and kept closing the drawer and kept carrying the secret like a brick in my chest for 27 more years, and then one morning in March, I did not put the silk camisole back. I held it against my collarbone, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I will never forget what I saw, which was a person I recognized for the very first time, and the recognition was not visual, it was somatic, it was in my chest, it was in my stomach, it was in that strange place behind my shoulder blades that holds tension, and the release of that tension was what I felt in the mirror, and that is the second turning point. And we're going to stay on this one a little longer because it matters, and because I need you to understand what the mirror actually does, because the mirror is not doing what you think it is doing. The mirror is not showing you a woman. The mirror is showing you a softer version of you that your brain has been hiding from you your entire life. And once you see that softer version, you cannot unsee it, and you will try to unsee it. You will try to shake it off. You will try to go to work and forget about it, and none of that will work because the brain does not forget, the brain files it, and the brain brings it back at the worst possible moments, and the worst possible moment for me was at a work conference in Atlanta where I sat through a 3-hour PowerPoint about quarterly earnings, and the entire time I was thinking about a lipstick I had seen in a duty-free shop in the airport, and I had not bought the lipstick, and I had not tried on the lipstick, but I was rehearsing buying the lipstick in my head, and the rehearsal was so vivid that when I got home 2 days later, I went straight to the drugstore, and I bought 3, and I put them in the glove compartment of my car, and I drove around for a week with 3 lipsticks in my glove compartment, and I told myself it was a joke, and it was not a joke, and that brings us to turning point number 3, which is the moment the joke stops being a joke, and that moment came on a Tuesday night in May when my wife fell asleep on the couch at 9:30, and I carried a blanket over to her, and I covered her up, and I kissed her on the forehead, and I walked into our bedroom, and I closed the door, and I took one of those 3 lipsticks out of my jacket pocket, and I looked at it for what felt like an hour, and then I put it on, and I did not look in the mirror, because I was afraid of what I would see, and I looked anyway, and the person who looked back at me was the person I had been searching for since I was 11 years old, and I sat down on the edge of the bed in the dark, and I cried, and I do not say that for sympathy, I say it, because I want you to know that the first time you see yourself, the real self, you're going to cry, and that is okay. And the crying is not weakness, the crying is your body finally exhaling after decades of held breath. And so let it come and let it pass, and then we will move on, because there are 11 more turning points, and we are only on the 3rd, and we still have a lot to do. And the next thing we have to do is we have to talk about what happened the next morning, because nothing happened, and that is what scared me, because nothing meant I had to do it again, and that meant I had to admit that the Tuesday night was real, and so the next night I did it again, and I added mascara, and the mascara burned my eyes because I bought the wrong mascara, and I bought mascara meant for volume, and what I needed was mascara meant for length, and the difference between volume mascara and length mascara is that volume mascara clumps and length mascara separates, and clumps on a male lash look like spider legs, and spider legs are not the look we are going for. And so please learn from my mistake, and please buy length mascara on day 1, and the next night I added foundation, and the next night I added a wig that I had ordered online, and arrived in a brown box that I had taken out of the mailbox before my wife got home from work, and the brown box sat on the kitchen counter for 3 hours, and every single time I walked past it my heart rate went up, and the heart rate was the tell, and the tell is what gets most crossdressers caught. And that is turning point number 4, which is the first time I almost got caught because my wife came home 20 minutes early that night, and I heard the garage door opening, and I had 6 seconds to get the wig off and the foundation off and the mascara off, and I failed. I failed completely. I still had a strip of tape on my forehead from the wig line, and she walked into the bedroom, and she saw me sitting on the edge of the bed in her pink wrap dress with a half-removed wig and a smear of beige foundation down the side of my face, and we stared at each other for what felt like a year, and the year was actually 11 seconds, and then I said it was a costume for a work thing, and she said okay and walked out of the room, and I sat there, and I knew that I had just lied to the person I loved most in the world, and I knew that the lie had cost me something I would not get back, and that brings us to turning point number 5, which is the lie and the cost of the lie, and I want to pause here because I am going to teach you something that nobody taught me, which is that lies never work and they cost more than the truth ever will. And I know the truth feels like a cliff because I have stood at the edge of that cliff myself, and I paced back and forth on that cliff for 6 more weeks, and I kept finding new excuses to keep pacing, and none of the excuses worked, and none of the excuses would work for you either. And so if you are pacing right now, I need you to stop pacing, and I need you to look at the person you love, and I need you to remember that the cliff is not as high as it looks from the top, and the fall is not as far as you think it is, and there is water at the bottom, and the water is warm, and that water is acceptance, and that is where we are going next, because turning point number 6 is what happened when I finally told the truth, and the truth came out sideways because I was too scared to say it straight. And so I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I slid the paper under her pillow, and the paper said, I am sorry I lied. And the paper said, I wore your things, and the paper said, I have been doing it since I was 11, and the paper said, I do not know what it means, and the paper said, I love you, and the paper said, please do not leave. And then I went to sleep, and I did not sleep, I pretended to sleep for 6 hours, and at 7 in the morning she sat up in bed, and she looked at me, and she said, I knew, and I said, what? And she said, I have known for 9 years. And I said, how? And she said, because you hum different songs when you think you are alone, and the songs are songs you would never sing. And so I knew someone else was in the room, and I said, who? And she said, the other you. And that is the most generous sentence anyone has ever said to me. And I want you to imagine receiving that sentence, because it is the sentence that ended my 38 years of pacing, and it is the sentence that started everything that came next, and everything that came next is what I am about to share with you, so stay with me, because the next 4 turning points are where the real teaching lives, and the real teaching is in the practical details, because crossdressing is not a fantasy, it is a skill, and a skill takes lessons, and I am going to give you those lessons right now. And the first lesson is sizing, and sizing is where almost every beginner fails, and so listen to me when I say this: the dress you buy at the mall will not fit you, the dress you buy online will not fit you, the dress you buy from a specialty shop will not fit you, and you will waste $200 and 3 weekends and most of your motivation before you ever get a single thing that makes you feel good. And the reason it does not fit is because women's sizing is built on a different bone structure than men's, and you and I do not have that bone structure, and we are not going to grow that bone structure no matter how many squats we do. And so we have to learn how to work with the body we actually have. And the body we actually have is broader in the shoulders and narrower in the hips and longer in the torso. And that combination does not exist in any off-the-rack dress. And so we have to cheat, and the cheat is high-waisted, and the cheat is a line, and the cheat is wrap, and the cheat is anything with a tie at the back, and the cheat is anything that schemes instead of clings. And the cheat is anything with a wide neckline that breaks up the shoulder line. And if you remember nothing else from this entire script, remember those 5 clues, which are high-waisted, which are a line, which are wrap, which are tied back, which are wide neckline, which are schemes. And if you combine 3 of those 5 clues in a single garment, you will look intentional. And if you combine only one of those 5 clues in a single garment, you will look like a man in a dress. And we do not want to look like a man in a dress, we want to look like a person expressing themselves, and the difference is in the silhouette. And the second lesson is tucking, and let us just get this out in the open, because I tried to skip this lesson for a year, and you cannot skip it. And so let me tell you what actually works, and what does not work, which is that the extreme methods you see online do not work for daily life, and the extreme methods are painful, and they limit your breathing, and they will keep you from going out the door. And so instead of extreme methods, we are going to talk about smart bottoms, and smart bottoms means wearing high-waisted briefs that hold everything in place without compressing your airway. And smart bottoms means choosing skirts that fall from the natural waist and not the hip, and that means no bodycon and no mini and no leather, and yes, lots of flow, and yes, lots of drape, and yes, lots of fabric that moves. And the third lesson is makeup. And makeup is the scariest lesson, and you will avoid it for as long as I did. And so let me tell you the foundation trick that changed everything for me, which is that you mix a drop of green color corrector into your foundation if you have beard shadow, and you apply it with a damp sponge, and you press it into the skin, and you do not rub it, and you let it set for 90 seconds before you do anything else. And that 90 seconds is where most people fail, because they get impatient and they skip it. And the skip is the difference between a face that looks like paint and a face that looks like skin. And once you have the skin, you move to eyes, and eyes are the easiest part, and you take a brown shadow and you blend it into the crease, and you take a black liner and you draw a thin line along the upper lash, and you stop there, and you do not do anything else, because less is more when you are a beginner, and more is regret. And the 4 contour lesson, and that is that you only contour the jawline and never the cheekbone, because contouring the cheekbone makes a male face look streaky, and contouring the jawline softens the jawline, and softening the jawline is what you want, because the jawline is the giveaway, and the jawline is what tells the world you were not always this, and the giveaway is what we are trying to eliminate. And the 5th lesson is contour, and that is that you only add blush to the apple of the cheek and not the hollow, and adding blush to the hollow makes you look older, and adding blush to the apple makes you look younger, and younger is what we want. And the 6th lesson is lips, and that is that you line your lips first, and then fill them in with a color that is 1 shade darker than your natural lip color, and the lining prevents the color from bleeding, and the bleeding is what looks amateur, and amateur is what we are not going for. And the 7th lesson is hair, and hair is the most expensive lesson, and I want to save you some money, so listen carefully, and that is that synthetic wigs in the $40 to $70 range look fake, and human hair wigs in the $150 to $300 $100 range look real, and so spend the money and spend it once, because trying to make a $40 wig look like a $300 wig will cost you more in time and frustration than just buying the $300 wig in the first place. And the eighth lesson is shoes, and that is that you cannot wear men's shoes and you cannot wear women's high heels right away, and so you wear pointed toe flats, and pointed toe flats elongate the leg, and elongating the leg is what changes the silhouette, and the silhouette is what makes the difference between a man in a dress and a woman in a dress. And that brings us to turning point number 7, which is the first time my wife helped me get ready, and that happened on a Sunday afternoon. And she sat me down at her vanity, and she did my foundation, and she did my contour, and she did my brows, and she did my lips, and she did my wig, and when she was done, she spun me around in the chair. And she looked at me, and she smiled, and she said, "There she is," and I cried again, and she handed me a tissue, and she said, "Stop crying, you're going to ruin your mascara," and we laughed. And the laugh was the laugh of two people who had just survived something, and the laugh is what taught me that a partner who stays is a partner who is always waiting to be invited, and I had finally invited her, and that is turning point number 8, which is the invitation, and the invitation is not as scary as it sounds, because the invitation is just one sentence, and the sentence is, "Can I show you something?" And the sentence can be said on a Tuesday night, and the sentence can be said with a tremble in your voice, and the sentence can be said when you are scared, and the sentence will not break the relationship. The silence will break the relationship, and I promise you the silence will break it. And so please, please, please say the sentence before the silence does its work, and we are going to keep moving, because we still have 4 more turning points, and I want to give them all to you. And turning point number 9 is the first outing, and the first outing is what you are most afraid of. And so let us prepare you for it, which is that you pick a place that is low pressure, and by low pressure, I mean a coffee shop in a neighborhood where you do not know anyone, and you go on a weekday afternoon when the shop is half empty, and you go with someone who knows you, and that someone is your partner, or that someone is a friend who already knows, and that someone is non-negotiable, because the first time you go out alone you will feel the eyes on you even when the eyes are not there, and the eyes that are not there are called anxiety, and anxiety is a liar. And so you bring your someone, and you bring your someone because their presence is your permission slip, and you walk in and you order a drink, and you pay with cash, because paying with cash keeps the transaction short, and you keep your head up, and you keep your shoulders back, because a person who is confident gets read as a woman, and a person who is nervous gets read as a target. And so we keep our shoulders back, and we keep our chin level, and we keep our voice steady, and we do not order a complicated drink, because complicated drinks invite small talk, and small talk invites questioning, and questioning invites panic. And so we order an oat milk latte, and we say thank you, and we smile, and we walk to the corner booth, and we do not look at our phone, because looking at a phone invites staring. And so we read a book, and we drink our drink, and we stay for 20 minutes, and then we leave, and we go home, and we take off the wig, and we take off the makeup, and we sit in the quiet, and we feel the hum of having done a thing we did not think we could do. And that hum is the hum of becoming, and that hum is addictive, and that hum is why we are still here 6 months later planning the second outing, and the third outing, and the fourth outfit, and the 5th lipstick. And that brings us to turning point number 10, which is the conversation that happens after the first outing, and that conversation is with your wife, and it is the conversation about what this is and what this means, and whether it is a hobby or whether it is a part of you. And I want to be honest with you that this conversation does not resolve quickly, and this conversation took us 11 weeks, and we had 3 false starts and 2 crying sessions, and 1 really bad night where she asked me if I was transgender, and I said, "I do not know," and she said, "You need to know," and I said, "I will figure it out," and that "I will figure it out" was the most honest thing I had said in years, and we did figure it out, and what we figured out was that I am not transgender, and that I am a crossdresser, and the difference is that I am happy in my male body, and the male body is the body I live in most of the time, and the female presentation is the other body I visit on weekends, and sometimes on weeknights, and both bodies are mine, and both bodies are allowed. And that was the conclusion, and the conclusion did not come easy, and the conclusion required a therapist, and the therapist was worth every penny, because the therapist gave us a vocabulary, and the vocabulary was the thing we were missing. And you do not have to go to a therapist to get the vocabulary, you can get the vocabulary right here, and the vocabulary is that crossdressing is not a fetish, and is not a perversion, and is not a phase, and is not gay. and is not straight, and is not a cry for help, and is not a sign of broken masculinity, and is not something to cure, and is not something to be ashamed of. And crossdressing is the practice of expressing a part of yourself that the world told you to hide, and the hiding is the problem, and the expression is the solution, and the solution is not a phase, the solution is a permanent invitation to be more fully who you are, and that is the lesson behind turning point number 10, and that takes us to turning point number 11, which is the closet reorganization. And the closet reorganization is something that sounds small and is actually enormous. And what we did was we cleared out one half of our shared closet and we put a curtain across that half, and the curtain is pink because my wife picked the curtain, and the curtain makes the space feel like a room, and the room is my room, and the room has a small lamp and a full-length mirror and a jewelry box and 3 wigs on stands and a basket of foundation and a basket of brushes and a basket of accessories. And the basket system matters because the basket system means that one motion opens everything and one motion closes everything, and the one motion is the difference between a Tuesday night experiment and a Tuesday night ritual. And a ritual is something you protect, and a ritual is something your partner respects, and a ritual is what saved my marriage. And so if you take only one practical thing from this entire script, take the basket system, because the basket system will fit in a small dresser drawer, and the basket system will give you the feeling of having a place. And the feeling of having a place is the feeling of being allowed, and being allowed is what we are all looking for, and being allowed is what changed everything for me, which brings us finally to turning point number 12. And turning point 12 is the moment that I realized that I had become a better husband because I had started wearing my wife's clothes. And that sounds paradoxical, because how could a man become a better husband by wearing a dress? And the answer is that the better husband is a more honest husband, and the more honest husband is a more present husband, and the more present husband is a more attentive husband. And the more attentive husband is a more patient husband, and the more patient husband is a more playful husband, and the more playful husband is the husband my wife fell in love with in the first place. And so we have come full circle, and the circle is that the secret I was keeping was the secret that was eroding my marriage, and the truth I am speaking tonight is the truth that is rebuilding my marriage. And I want to say that again, because it is the line I want you to remember, and the line is that the closet door is the marriage door, and the marriage door is the closet door, and the 2 doors are the same door, and when you open one, you open the other, and when you close one, you close the other. And so I am asking you right now at minute 12 of this 13-minute video to consider which door you have been holding shut, and I am asking you to consider that the door you have been holding shut is the door that wants to open, and the door that wants to open is the door that will set you free. And I am not exaggerating, and I am not being dramatic, and I am not recruiting you into anything except the one place that has been missing from your life, and that place is the inside of your own truth. And the inside of your own truth is where this whole story ends, not with a bang, but with a quiet click of a closet door opening, and a husband walking through it, and a wife walking through it beside him, and a dog looking up from the couch with one ear raised, and the neighbors not noticing, and the world not ending, and the love not breaking, and in fact the love getting bigger, and the love getting louder, and the love getting softer, and the love getting more honest. And that is it. That is the whole story. That is the whole lesson. That is the whole hook. And that is the whole promise I made you in the first sentence, and I hope I kept it. And if I did, then I hope you do something with it. And the something is not big, and the something is not heroic, and the something is just one drawer, one small conversation, one pair of socks, one quiet Sunday afternoon. And if you are not ready for the drawer, and you are not ready for the conversation, and you are not ready for the socks, and you are not ready for the afternoon, then just sit with the feeling that this story gave you, and let the feeling do its work, because the feeling is the seed, and the seed does not need water today. The seed just needs to know that the soil is not hostile, and the soil is not hostile, and the soil has never been hostile, and the soil is sitting there waiting for you, and the soil is your life, and your life is your closet, and your closet is your door, and your door is your marriage, and your marriage is your truth, and your truth is the only thing you have ever really owned. And I am going to be quiet now, but I am not going to disappear, and I am going to be here next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and I am going to keep showing up in the same wig, and the same lipstick, and the same cashmere robe, and I am going to keep sharing the same lessons, because the lessons are free, and the closet is open, and the door is open, and the marriage is open, and you are welcome inside whenever you are ready. And if you stayed until this very last sentence, then you are braver than you think you are, and thank you for that. And I will see you in the next one.